question that I wanted to ask for Brennan sent me in advance, and he was mentioning resale marketplaces can often struggle with unstructured inventory. And yet at kind of Reverb and Pango, you've created more of a structured kind of SKU based experience that be maybe more typical with like a shopping new experience. So what was the playbook for doing that well? And then he also mentioned, how do you see AI shifting that going forward?
I mean, the advantage at Pango is we do have ISBNs, which is an industry that has some structured data. So clearly we can lean into that. But ISBNs aren't the same as titles. And there are lots of books that don't have ISBNs. And figuring out how to discover and find your book still requires a lot of really good database and search technology and, understanding the distinction between a structured database and a good search to me is like the other discovery that a lot of marketplaces either miss or don't spend the time on very early on in Reverb. And Reverb, on the other hand, there's very unstructured taxonomy, and that was another one of Dan's drives, is how to bring structured taxonomy to an unstructured world. There was no price guides, no active way to compare similar models that had different finishes. Every year the models would change. So we started to build that. It's a 10, 15, 20-year journey to build that thing, but you got to start somewhere. And so building that sort of taxonomy early on. But I do want to emphasize the search thing is important because I remember in 2013, our CTO or Chief Product Officer at the time, Dan, another Dan, he said, no, we need to go to Elasticsearch. And this is way sooner than I thought. I mean, we were only doing 2 million in GMS and we maybe had, I don't know, a couple hundred thousand listings. And we started using Elasticsearch really early on, and that made a huge difference. And the same thing with Pango, like having a separate search platform and dedicating all the search intelligence that you can build to get people to find the product, especially early on, and scaling that is really, really important. And not just relying on a SQL database or a MongoDB or any of that, like really investing the time in search and making sure that you have good search and that you have multi-dimensional search. Like you can search for authors, you can search for people that are selling it. In the marketplace world, there's this other dynamic. Are they buying the product or are they buying from one of your sellers? Like we're finding at Pango that actually people are following our sellers and they're leaning into, we have a huge part of our community that leans into who they want to buy from before they're necessarily going and just doing a broad search. We didn't have as much of that at Reverb, but that's a good thing to have where you're this sort of mall as opposed to this sort of like warehouse, right? It's kind of a different approach.